I'm Georgie Turner, I'm Head of Comms at BCP Council, and it's not surprising if you've never heard of BCP Council because it's one of the newest local authorities in the country. It's only been in existence since the 1st of April this year, and it's a result of a major local government reorganisation that saw our council created for a conurbation of 3 towns serving 400,000 people. And that's larger than Southampton, it's larger than Cardiff, makes us the 12th largest local authority in the country. So, in creating the new council, just to give you a little bit of an idea of what we were dealing with, prior to April this year, we had the historic borough of Poole to the west, we had the ancient borough of Christchurch to the east, both with really long histories in a doomsday book, very proud communities. And then you kind of had this young upstart of Bournemouth in the middle, which is only 200 years old as a town, but had actually grown to be the largest of the 3 councils. And then alongside that, you had Dorset County Council providing most of the services to Christchurch because that was a two-tier system. So the bid to government went in 2017. It proposed abolishing all 9 councils in Dorset and creating BCP Council and Dorset Council in the rural part of our county. And at that time, only 6 of the 9 councils in Dorset supported that because effectively they were voting for their own abolition. So on our patch, Christchurch was one of the councils that was opposed to the creation of the new council. And it's not surprising, is it? Because they did have 2,000 years of history. And people were rightly proud of their respective towns. But also we needed to convince them they needed to recognise the financial reality of local government and public sector, because part of the case was we'll save money by creating 2 councils instead of 9. It's kind of obvious. And actually changing your local governance doesn't erase any history. None of that changes. It's just a new council. But obviously there are lots of sensitivities around. But we got through it. Government approved the bid in February 2018, and that gave us 13 months to create a £750 million organisation, whilst carrying on running the services that local councils have to run. So really this was huge. So what's in a name? Well, we might just be creating a council, but with all this context and all this history, you really cannot underestimate the importance of getting the name right. So what were our options? Well, obviously, Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole Council. No, absolutely not. That was far too sensitive because there was an assumption, which I think may actually have become reality, that people would just call it Bournemouth. They would just shorten it to Bournemouth Council. And actually this was about a new council serving all 3 towns equally. It wasn't about one town being more important than any of the others. But also from a practical point of view, who wants to type Georgia.Turner at Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole Council.gov.uk? It's quite a lot of scope for entry error there, so it's actually not very customer friendly as a name either. So what about something suitably historic like Wessex Council? Well, actually the geography isn't quite right. It's not really very forward and future looking, is it? So perhaps something more geographical like South East Dorset. Oh, no, far too provincial. Not suitable for the 12th largest local authority in the country. Or Poole Bay. Well, again, too specific. That's how we ended up with BCP Council. So, what was people's reactions to that then? The obvious one, well, no one's going to know where they are. BCP doesn't mean anything. That was about the best reaction. It sounds like a car park. Well, that's because it is British car parks. And my favourite, as in my least favourite, oh, do you mean TCP? Ah, great. So that's how that went right down. So from that perspective, from that starting place, we needed to develop a corporate identity. So we did some brand positioning work with leading councillors and directors from the preceding councils and Shadow Authority to help shape a corporate identity brief. We wanted something that would be fit for a modern 21st century council. We chose a mix of skills and approaches, so we used amazing in-house capability, but we also employed a local graphics agency because there's a really strong creative sector locally, a really well-renowned arts university, and a lot of the graduates set up businesses in our area. And so we really wanted local companies to at least have an opportunity to be involved in shaping the visual identity for the council that was ultimately responsible for creating the economic prosperity in the area. So we developed a creative brief. We said we wanted something bold, brave, and ambitious. So we got from that 4 what we were calling beta stage concepts. 2 of these were designed in-house. 2 of them were designed from a partner agency. Here they are. It's kind of therapy, actually, for me, looking at these again. It's sort of therapy and sort of like, ooh, makes me a bit wobbly. So I won't dwell on them because they're kind of the next step. Everybody's favourite thing, public engagement. So we had engagement with shadow authority members, so 120 councillors from the preceding councils that we had to engage with and get their feedback on. So up until this point, we'd be working with like the shadow executive, so it was only 20. Now we had 120 to get feedback from. We also ran drop-ins and roadshows for staff to come along and see the options across various different sites. And we sent a survey to a proportionally balanced sample of 2,000 subscribers from the Bournemouth, Poole and Christchurch Council's email news services. Now, we knew that the designs weren't a finished article. We wanted some feedback because we wanted to see which of them, if any, with some development, could best represent a new council, could represent this bold, brave, ambitious 21st century, 12th biggest in the country local authority. We needed to perfect it, we knew that, and we wanted to get that feedback before it would be adopted for the new council. Oh, of course, this was very big news locally, very big news. Our local paper, the Bournemouth Echo, very helpfully also decided to print all 4 of those beta stage logos and invite feedback from their readers. Now, we all know local papers are a very useful source of feedback and attract some interesting commentary. And of course, those good folk were more than happy to tell us what they thought. So this is the headline that our local paper published. That was just our councillors that had actually badged it that in the first place. So this is the kind of comments that we got back. They were laughable. They could have been knocked up by a 5-year-old. Bournemouth Council's logo is quite good. Why don't we just use that? Somebody who said, this is my favourite one, I didn't write this and I don't know who did. It was obvious people were going to moan. As soon as it was made public, the logo wasn't going to be the Poole Dolphin jumping over Christchurch Priory at the end of Bournemouth Bit. And this very helpful suggestion, how about this from my idea? Why don't we get local people to submit their ideas and the winner gets free council tax? Well, you know, luckily for us, someone did submit an idea. So look at that. There you go. Yeah. Okay, so the good news is we got 1,300 responses from staff, from councillors and from the public. So the quantitative work told us, the kind of vote for your favourite, there was no favourite. Absolutely no winner. It was completely split across the 4 beta designs that I showed you. And the comments and feedback that we got gave us some really genuinely useful insights. And actually, what they told us was, you just need to start from scratch. None of them are good enough. So people told us they wanted more locational reference. They wanted emphasis. This is a big thing. This is 3 towns being served by 1 council. So try and create a bit more of a sense of unity here. Highlight the common features. You know, where's the beach? Where's the coastline? That was the main feedback. One of the main feedback that we got. They liked the bright colours that some of the betas had, but they wanted strong typography to kind of work with the graphic elements a bit more. And they wanted a bit more of an economic reflection. So some of the part of the case for creating the new councils wasn't just it's more efficient, it will save you money. It was, we'll have a much greater voice at government because we'll be bigger, we can bid for money, we're more likely to contribute to the economic prosperity of the area. So people wanted to kind of have that feel as well. So this is it. Looks absolutely nothing like any of the preceding logos that I showed you. So there's a bit of a story to it. We did start from scratch, as you can see. The shape of it is loosely based on a geographic footprint of the Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, the new borough. The dots, we used dots, we could have used a kind of solid, but we used dots to try and give a bit of a progressive, digital feel, create a bit of a sense of movement. There's 113 of those dots. That's not an accident. That's because if you add up that we've got 76 councillors in 33 wards across 3 towns, making up 1 council, that gives you 113. And very deliberately, the 3 dots, even though I said Bournemouth's previous geography and number of residents was the biggest, those 3 dots are very deliberately the same size to show that this new council is equally serving all the residents of the new borough. Obviously, the bright blue reflects our beautiful sea in Bournemouth and Poole and Christchurch. And the purple was traditionally quite a business-focused colour, so we kind of put that in there to give a sense of authority and business and kind of dynamic economy. So that's it. So once that corporate identity was agreed, we then had to get on with implementation. And this was, by the way, with 3 months to go until the council went live. This was basically started about January this year. So because we didn't have very long, the emphasis we took was on what was legally required and what was business critical. Now, to understand the scale of the job, we'd already done a load of data capture, and that had obviously identified what, as you'd expect, thousands of uses of preceding council logos, online and offline, on hard copy documents, digital document systems, enforcement notices, uniforms, publicity materials, signage, invoices, ID passes, vehicles, letterheads, anything and everything, you name it. And we also discovered some really interesting little nuggets of information, like, for example, a parking enforcement notice, a parking ticket, wouldn't be enforceable if it wasn't properly branded, because you would not be paying Bournemouth Council or Poole Council. You had to pay BCP Council. So there was actually genuinely revenue streams that we had to protect as well when we prioritised legally and business critical. And actually the whole rationale for day one for the whole of the programme to create the new council was safe landing, the safe and legal transfer of services on day one. Nothing breaks. That was the main aim, nothing breaks. And actually residents don't really see much difference in their services on day one. That was what we wanted to achieve as a whole programme-wide outcome. So for us, our priority was to bring some confidence to the brand so that people knew this was their new council now, and they could trust it in whatever way they were engaging with it. If they were paying for something online, it was properly branded. They knew they were paying, they weren't being defrauded. If they were receiving a service in their home, which is more likely to be vulnerable people, that ID badge was really important, because just because they had a Bournemouth Borough Council badge doesn't mean they work for BCP Council anymore. And if they were visiting council building, we wanted to, all those things needed to be rebranded. Alongside that, we also had our own services to worry about. We had to make sure our service continuity was as good as anybody else's, and that was an absolutely massive undertaking for us as a team, because like everyone else in the council, we also had to continue with our day jobs. And actually, my amazing colleague Tina, who's sat over there, she did a massive piece of work. A load of this work fell to Tina to actually get our service continuity, particularly on social and email marketing. So you can talk to her at lunchtime if you want to know more about that. And it is really worth saying that this wasn't just up to me. You know, as comms people, quite often we just get on with it. Just get on with it, don't we? But in this case, it was a very tight programme structure in place. And so every decision had to have a record. And although I was at the time head of comms for Bournemouth and Poole councils, I still had my colleague opposite number in Christchurch. So we had to work together on every decision and everything we were doing, from what social media platform we were going to use, what the new magazine was going to be called. All of these things needed governance and decision records around them, up through delivery boards and programme boards. And at the time, it felt a bit painful. Why can't we just get on and do it? But actually it was really good, really necessary, because it gave us good governance, and actually it also got us all working and thinking as one and making decisions together. So what did we do? Well, for social media, Twitter, we renamed and re-engaged. So we just renamed the account with the most followers. You can't merge accounts on Twitter, or I don't know if you can now, but you couldn't in April. So we just took the one that had the most followers, which was Bournemouth. Had about 22,000 followers at the time. And what the analytics that Tina did, we knew that 27% of those followers also followed the Borough of Poole, and 25% also followed Christchurch. So we knew we were getting quite a good spread of interest as well if we went with that one. But because you couldn't merge accounts, we had to rename it. But we couldn't rename it until the 1st of April because Bournemouth Council still existed and Bournemouth Council still needed it. So we literally just were Bournemouth Council one day, BCP Council the next. And I think there was a moment, we grabbed BCP Council, there was a moment when it kind of had to get shut down and transfer it when we were like, oh, someone else might get in there and nick it just in those 1 minute, but it didn't happen. So. And that following there is, today is 26,000 there on Twitter. For Facebook, we had to create a new page. We did that in January. That's My BCP Council. We couldn't have BCP Council because we're not the Baltimore County Provider Council, who already had got that. Neither are we the Bombay College of Pharmacy Council, who also were using BCP Council. And then we merged the Bournemouth and Poole Facebook pages. Christchurch did not have a page, so we didn't have to worry about them. And then merged them into the new account on day one. And that gives us 37,000 we've got now in that community. Alongside that, we've got 132 non-corporate accounts, which we weren't going to say you stop doing them, but equally, you're not Poole anymore and you're not Christchurch anymore. So that was a huge rebranding piece that Tina had to work on and get some of them into all over, because not all of them were. Some of them were, but some of them weren't. So that was, again, another massive undertaking, all of this ready for day one. And then we had some other stuff to do. So the magazine, relatively easy in that we were doing 3, now we're doing 1. But, challenges around content, got to make sure it's even, it's equal, it's equally spread. Email marketing, just when we thought we could, we'd make it a bit more difficult for ourselves and do a bit of a market appraisal. We actually end up moving provider on our email marketing as well, transferring 73,000 email addresses, setting up our email topics, all that kind of stuff, new templates. And a signposting website, because actually the 3 council websites still exist because a lot of services still are not aligned. So, your bin service is actually different in the 3 councils now. So if you want to report a bin, you do it. It's 1 council, but you've got 3 different ways of doing it. So most stuff is still on preceding council websites. They just had to be rebranded and signposted too from a new one. LinkedIn and social, we created new accounts for those. They weren't massively embedded in our social media offer previously. So on those, it was not too much challenge. Then we finally got on to the fun stuff, which was actually getting on to doing the launch campaign for the new council. Now, the aims of that were to create awareness of the new council brand. We wanted to generate trust and confidence amongst residents from day one, reassure them about service continuity, because our qualitative insights had really showed us that people were concerned that their services would change on day one, things would go wrong, stuff would discontinue. Obviously, the services would nowhere near be as good as they are now. And we really needed them to know that wasn't going to be the case. We wanted to create a sense of unity, so we tried to talk about Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole a lot, even though the name was BCP Council, and also instill pride amongst staff. So leading up to day one, we did a little bit of old school leafleting out with council tax bills. So it was a good opportunity because something's being sent to 186,000 households. So, we're going to have to jump on that really. So we did do that. We sent a leaflet which it had a bit of information about where the money goes kind of stuff. But actually it was more about trying to create a sense of the scale and a sense of place. This is what we're dealing with now. This is the place that you live. And actually, if you drive across, I don't know if anyone's ever been, but if you ever drive across Poole, Bournemouth and Christchurch, it just feels like one conurbation. It is one conurbation, even though the town centres themselves have quite distinct feels. So that leaflet went out. We also did a load of stuff on social media, again, on the new accounts and on the preceding accounts, trying to give a bit of a sense of scale and just something's coming. Then we move on to our main kind of launch campaign proper, which was called Here For You. The creative was a really simple play on language, using the phrase Here For You from day one. Now, the phrase, obviously, from day one, it kind of has a meaning that it's something that's always been there, but for us, of course, we had the real day one, which was April the 1st, 2019. So it was a real day one. So here's an example of some bus backs that we did. So it was really important to us that we use real people. We talked a little bit about being authentic and human. People have talked about this morning. So we thought it was really important we used real staff, real people. So you've got Rosie and Paul, who are occupational therapists, Val in the libraries, and Gary, who was hilarious. I wish I'd had time to include the outtakes from him. So he just basically kept standing there laughing all the time. And those services that we picked for the bus backs and the out of home, so these are from 6-sheet and digital display adverts. They're very carefully chosen because we've gone refuse collection, everybody gets that. Libraries, everybody can access that. And occupational therapy, so trying to show a social care thing, which let's hope most people don't have to access that, but it's really high cost, important service for vulnerable people. So those were why we picked those ones as the services we wanted to feature. And we just spent £10,000 on bus shelter and bus back advertising across a 2-week period. Across key routes, obviously highlighted key commuter routes and traffic across the new borough area. And our analytics were, for the out-of-home, 205,000 opportunities to see, and bus backs to nearly 250,000 opportunities to see in that time. But the main thrust of the campaign was video, which we put on our social channels and our internal channels. And I think it's about 5 minutes. I might stop it early if because everybody wants their lunch. So I'll just press play on that. That's not working. Oh, thanks.
Hello, I'm Georgie Turner, Chief Executive of BCP Council, serving the residents and businesses of Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole. I'm here for you, making sure all the council services, from emptying the bins to keeping people safe, continue to run well from day one.
Hi, I'm Wendy. I'll be here for you, helping with your council tax and housing benefit from day one.
Hi there, I'm Simon. I'll be keeping the parts clean and tidy from day one.
I'm Nina. I'm here for you, ensuring good standards are kept high from day one.
Hi, I'm Michael, and I'll be here to welcome you into the museum from day one.
Hi, I'm there, and I'll be here for you from day one to help you avoid your customer inquiries.
So you probably get the picture. There's quite a few more. I won't make you sit for all of them. I do feel really proud looking back over those, though. And also, it's not very often in local government you get a chance to say, look at all the stuff we do. Because people think, guess what, we dig up the roads and we empty the bins. That's it. So there was the museum, there was refuse collectors coming up later, librarians, occupational therapists, saw the museum. I think there was the guys that do the voting and elections. So loads and loads and loads. Oh, no, stop. No one needs to see that again. So in terms of the analytics, we had 14,000 views of those in 3 weeks. So we effectively did about 15 and did one a day across lots of channels. It was important as well that the staff were in there, and we used them on our staff channels because it was showing staff, you are part of this too. You are making this happen. Our organic reach was 1.5 million. And we had 243 retweets and shares and 746 likes. I'm super proud of it because all that work was done in-house. All the video, all the collateral, all the graphics, all the photography, everything. And we're just so lucky to have such a talented team that can turn all that around in a pretty short space of time, really. So on my final reflections, I would say actually developing a brand was really, really quite a tough couple of months when we were doing, particularly on public engagement, because it became a bit of a political football. I mean, we're used to being in the middle of difficult stuff in comms, aren't we? That's what we do. But when it's about a project you're leading and you're quite personally invested in, you feel like your team's credibility and your professional reputation is kind of resting on it, it can be incredibly hard not to take the negativity to heart or get angry. But you know, we got through it, and I would say in the final reflections, don't underestimate the politics or the pain of doing something like this, especially if you're in a local authority that's bidding for a merger at the moment, because it's coming. You do need to grow a thick skin and establish what your coping mechanism is going to be, what your support networks are, who you're going to turn to for advice and support. But, you know, really believe in yourself and your team. Like I say, all of that work was done in-house, everything. And have fun with it, because you will get through it. You really will. That's it.